Well, it was the job of my dreams. Not exactly. In a small town near where I live, there was a magazine startup, and I applied to be an office person. But in the interview, they said, no, you're not an office person. You're going to be an associate editor. And I said, what? And they said, listen, I listen to your words. You have it. That's what you're going to do. Whoops. In any case, there was only really one problem with this. I mean, I like to speak, I kind of like to write, but I never finished my papers in school because I was afraid if they actually read them, they would see that I was a bluff. And here I had deadlines and I had to write papers and they were published. And so it was really going okay, surprisingly okay. And I had a brilliant, I watch for those brilliant ideas. So the boss of this magazine, Medical Self-Care, which was really a cutting edge because, he graduated from Yale Medical School, but he saw that the medical system was screwed up and that people should be able to take treatment into their own hands. And he was going to tell them how. So this was Tom Ferguson, a visionary. Now, in uh, my town, there was another visionary named Mike Samuels, and he was a very prolific author. And he had a theme. He started with the Well Body book, and then the Well Child book, the Well Baby book, the Well Adult book, the Well Earth book. On and on he went with wellness. And I thought that we should get these two visionaries together and see what synergistically could emerge. So, I was gonna host a dinner party. I'm not the hostess with the mostess. And I also didn't have room for it. So Mike said, you can have it at our house. It's nice and big. And I said, great. And then I was into kind of experimental cooking at that time. And I had just learned how to make calzone, which is kind of like a pizza, an enclosed pizza, which means it has to be baked. And so I rolled out the dough and I put it in the bowl and I put the tea towel over it and I took it in the only room that got warm enough so it might rise in our drafty farmhouse. And I waited 2 hours and I went to fetch the dough and the door had locked itself. I mean, a screwy house. What could I do? Well, there was a kind of a putative fire escape, which was made out of wood, a wooden ladder right up the side of the building. So I climbed that ladder. I pushed open the window, thank God it wasn't locked, and I kind of thrust myself ass over tea kettle into the room, and the dough had risen, and I wasn't going to trust carrying it down. So I kind of made a little harness for it, and I lowered it, and I climbed down myself. Somebody said, why didn't you open the door? It's because I was just too freaked. But I rolled out the dough and I made the calzone and they baked a beautiful brown and they smelled like pizza. It was great. And so I loaded them up because we were going to this dinner party. Now, we had also invited, just for the hell of it, uh, a couple who were both physicians. We call them allopathic physicians. They did it kind of ordinarily, but they were also both writers and they were charming. And so here we were at the house of Mike Samuels, which looked kind of peculiar. And I called out, Mike! And he came around the corner and he said, oh my God, I forgot our house is being tented for termites. And so we're going to have to eat outside. And he had picnic tables. So I spread out the calzone and the guests were all there. Tom Ferguson, Mike Samuels, the Greenwood doctors, me and my husband, John, a trickster. And we bit into the calzones. They were delicious. And you know what else was interested in the calzones? Yellow jackets. So it was a complicated meal because we were swatting and hoping we weren't going to get bitten. But you may want to know about this visionary synergy. You know what really happened? Testosterone kicked in and egos big as a barn. And so instead of sharing beautiful thoughts for self-care, it was just until, thank God, the calzone was gone and we could get into the car and go home. Now, this couple, this lovely allopathic doctor couple, was in the back seat. And that's when my husband, remember I said he was a trickster, he did one of his tricks. We were on a deserted country road and he just turned out the headlights. And you should have heard the gasp from the back, because if we had gotten into an accident, medical self-care couldn't have done a thing. But then John turned the lights back on and we let the couple out and we went home and I let out my breath. I have never made calzone again. I have never hosted a dinner party. When there's a brilliant idea, I try to ignore it. I learned, we all learned, and that's my story. Thank you.